Welcome to The Pulse. I am Daniel Daze. These are the headlines. It's 27 days to election 2020. We touch base with all political parties as they vigorously campaign for the hearts and the votes of the electorate. Also, Accra traders accuse government of failing to enforce COVID-19 protocols as the safety measures are abandoned in the markets. Meanwhile, medical doctors predicting hospitals will be overrun by December if this situation continues as it is. All this and more coming up here on The Pulse with me, Daniel Daze. Welcome. Welcome to The Pulse. In our first story, some motorists who use the Accra-Tema motorway are calling on authorities to fix a portion of the stretch which is gradually being eroded. They fear people will die if the affected section of the road, which is being washed away, collapses. Maxwell Agbagba has more in our Arrive Alive story for today.
That is supporting the bridge is off. The road, the erosion is chopping into the middle of the road, and no one is paying attention to it.
Voice of a concerned motorist in a video sent to JoyNews talking about the danger on the eastbound section of the Accra-Tema motorway.
To draw the authorities' attention that we shouldn't wait for a disaster to happen before we come to save lives. This is very bad. The road is caving in. Please, the authorities should take note of this and come to the aid of the road. They are begging you. We don't want any disaster to happen before they come with excavators to save lives.
Well, this is a 19-kilometer Accra-Tema motorway stretch. Well, what you're seeing here is a big hole, and now this is eating deep into a portion of the 19-kilometer stretch here. What we've observed so far is that sometimes vehicles are forced to squeeze themselves into the other lane just to avoid this. We do not know what happens in the evening, and until this is fixed, it continues to remain danger to motorists.
It is a big pit caused by erosion around the storm drain very close to the Ashaiman underpass. Motorists who use the road tell me what started as a small hole is gradually expanding into the main road. They fear that portion of the motorway may cave in if it is not fixed. Some of them also fear vehicles may plunge into the storm drain as the railings on that portion of the road have been damaged.
My name is Wisdom.
Wisdom, okay. Wisdom what?
Wisdom Motu.
This man uses the motorway frequently. He wants authorities to fix the problem.
This is a Shama motorway under bridge. And then this thing occurred the last heavy rain that falls the last time. So I notified this, that was 2 months ago, that the bridge starts cracking like this. So even I try my best to do a short coverage and then post it for the concern of the people. So I thank you guys that you are here now to help solve the issue. So a lot of people are not identifying this yet because you see how the hole is. It doesn't affect to the down yet. So people are not identifying yet until they get to the end before you can see that the thing is dangerous. And what is here now is dangerous. But just people cannot see because every time they are in the car passing. So we sometimes I pass here. Yeah, I've been using the road, so I know that this is what is happening. I think a lot of people too have identified. Yeah.
So what do you want to be done?
So this thing immediately they need to come and fix this thing out before they get out of hand, because the next rain that will fall, it will affect again. That one is serious. Yeah.
Dennis Abani uses the Accra-Tema motorway every day to deliver honey to his clients.
When I get here, I find it difficult to use the outer lane. So what I do is I'll wait and check to see if there's no car coming. Then I use the inner lane, which is not even safe for me as a rider. I have to always use the outer lane because my speed is not that of car. You see, so it's very dangerous. And then the pedestrians too, they find it difficult to use the outer lane, which is almost caving in. And I think the authorities have to work on it, and then it should be immediate, or else we'll have a situation at our hand that we'll not be able to solve.
The Ghana Highway Authority says it will comment after an assessment of the situation. Maxwell Agbagba for JoyNews.
You're live on the Pulse with me, Daniel Daze. Now, government is today meeting researchers across the country to discuss various studies that have been conducted on the coronavirus. Ghana's active COVID-19 cases have spiked from 150 to 1,156 in just 3 weeks, raising fears of a possible second wave of the virus. But according to Health Minister Kweku Agyeman-Manu, this engagement will afford government the opportunity to harness knowledge built on the virus for an informed and approach in dealing with it.
I mean, there's no doubt that the strategy we use as a country worked. I mean, if you look at the curve, you realize that, like Dr. also said, there's a deceleration. So somewhere a month ago, we're all very comfortable. We're all actually happy that we've almost defeated COVID. You know, so I think the trace, test, and treat worked. But you all agree with me that along the line, these measures were all relaxed. And I think it got to a point, contact tracing wasn't done as vigorously as it used to at the peak of the thing. All right. Now, and probably understandable because they thought that things were under control. And so I must say that although we're doing the 3 T's, it was not as vigorous as it used to be. And probably that is why there was a breakthrough and the cases are increasing. Now, when you talk about strategy, we think that we must reinforce what we used to do. I mean,
which of them specifically?
Yeah, so from our part, we want to reinforce, make sure that people get to know about the preventive strategy. So with the Ghana Medical Association, I mean, under the leadership of our president, we started a nationwide campaign. All right, so all the regions are doing it. And of course, because most of the cases are in Greater Accra, we have started vigorously. So we've started educational campaigns. We are in partnership with the NCCE, and so we've booked times with the churches, mosques, second cycles, and then some of the markets. We have started already.
It's live on the Pulse. We'll come back to COVID-19 later in the bulletin, but now it's 27 days to election 2020. That's just 4 Mondays before Monday, the 7th of December 2020, when we go to the polls for that vote. That brings us so close. So today, the candidates are stepping up their campaigns as they targeting the electorate in areas where hard work is required. The campaign ground is too big, and that's why the Pulse is trying to fit all into your TV, so it's easy to understand which politician has the best message to inform your vote. We understand former President John Dramani Mahama just finished speaking in the Ashanti region. We'll get some updates there. But President Akufo-Addo's planned campaign starting from the northern region yesterday has delayed due to official engagements as the presidency. But Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been on the ground in the Upper East region. His wife, Samira Bawumia, is in the northern region, and they've been reaching out to voters. We'll bring you updates on their campaigns shortly. Now, let's take you to my colleague who is with Maxwell Agbagba, who is currently also hard at work with the campaigners. Maxwell, can you tell us what the atmosphere is where you're stationed? Right, Maxwell, if you can hear me, describe for us the scene there and which candidates are you traveling with? I can see that it's an NDC campaign that you are observing.
Palace, where former President John Mahama just finished addressing party supporters. He also just finished speaking to. Earlier we had the chief of Tapa, the Tapaman himself. He addressed the people here. Earlier he was at Abesawa to the Ashanti region, but as he
drove through the town, the Ashanti region. What we saw, fascinating scenes. Hundreds of people lined up the streets, many of them waving NDC flag, some of them raising their 2 fingers up in the air to indicate the position of the NDC on the ballot. At Abesewa, he spoke a lot about illegal mining and Galamsey. He said a lot of young people have been jailed because of Galamsey. He says if the NDC...
Details from the campaign trail. Remember, this is your election headquarters. We'll take you across the country in the bulletin so you can get a feel of exactly what the electorate is feeling on the ground across the country. Now, the running mate for former President John Dramani Mahama, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, is touring Accra whilst the First Lady is in Mokola. We bring you all that right now. Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman is speaking in Accra.
Arabic College of Education. Next, our request from the buyer. Service economy, I have a name. I call you, no, I'm trauma, dear, so by Guam, Kakram, not the Shannon Swap or so, some function, the Sadia. And the sounds of Sona, or sharp. I may grow, may move, bees, may moon, Katia, the one on my baby. That's all we do, Giamma. No sooner the on the park when the woman to say, every baby no, stand a condo post of a quick football. Nasani Paro, as I am saying. I said, John, what I said, yeah, maybe there were more pension. This was Kanisha. Not their only baby, their only big crown, no because it's Kanisha, or no say anything. It's a pension, I'm a farmers, fishermen, traders. Let me say to you, yeah, but so much to me, and I say, I do baby, I'm like a run, and I saw me come. So I'm there by, and I'm a one. I'm there, but I'm there. I'm there, you don't need it. It's a sense to say, almost so much there. Sana who goes to our dear come. Sana we are our dear come. Nada, Miss Red, da, Miss Red. Says a bonfire.
Now, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman is also promising that the NDC government will create a pension scheme for farmers, fishermen and traders when they retire. Meanwhile, the NDC's parliamentary candidate for Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency, John Dumelo, says there's going to be a replication of the US elections on December 7. Addressing market women at the Santana Market in Accra, the actor cum politician said this is going to be the first time that the president will be voted out in their first term.
I'm okay. Vice President. I'm not in charge. Go down. Sorry. Madam, you're welcome. Sorry, I'll finish that. But the way to America today, if you try 4 years, on the 7th of December, you can your Kotoba. But you have some drink. But you have some drink. I want to tell you about the Yenua. Or the Yenua. You put Yenua. You have a daddy. Because this time, I was supposed to have bread.
You're live on The Pulse with me, Daniel Jazzy. Stay with us. on The Pulse. Many thanks for staying with us. Let's stay on the campaign trail and take you straight to the Upper East region, where Albert Sori is with the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He joins us via phone. Albert, tell us, where has the Vice President been? What has he been saying?
So the Vice President started to talk the Upper East region this morning from the website, where he visited Cassetti as well as the minimum traditional areas. He's been addressing the chiefs and people there. His message has basically about the fact that the FDP government, the last 4 years, have done some projects, developmental projects, which he thinks that the people of the Upper East region should give them another 4-year mandate to continue. Now, he talked about the senior high school policy, for example, which he said that has helped parents who previously had to pay fees, or if they had more than one was going to senior high school, then the previous circumstance was that parents normally would have to choose to take only one child to the senior high school before they can consider another child if they had several was going to senior high school at the same time. He talked about the one place, one down policy. He talked about the Polgatanga Mokuko, as well as the Kwanogo Mokuko, which he said is one of the single largest investments that the MPP government is making anywhere in the country. He's, used the opportunity, as you would expect Bambia to do, to show some jobs, if you like, and some challenges to the NDP government. For instance, he mentioned SADA, which he said was the opportunity for the NDP government.
Albert, thank you for joining us. At a point, it seems like the line was a bit unclear. Thank you very much, Albert, for joining us there from the Upper East region. And we will be taking you to various points in the country where the candidates for the upcoming elections are campaigning vigorously. Of course, we know that in pole position here in Ghana, the MPP and the NDC, the president is currently in the northern region. Well, he had to postpone it for a day. The vice president in the Upper East region, the vice presidential candidate of the NDC is in the Greater Accra region, and the presidential candidate for the NDC is in the Ashanti region, which is known to be the stronghold of the governing NPP. It's been known, and in the Ashanti region, it was projected as Operation 1 million votes in election 2016, really. And that is what the NDC will be looking to do, or even better this time round. We'll take you back to the campaign trail shortly, but police say they have some names of persons suspected to have triggered a violent attack in Karaga in the northern region. There were some skirmishes in the Karaga constituency on Monday between the two major political parties in the area. 4 supporters of the MPP are currently receiving medical attention at the Karaga hospital. 1 is in critical condition, though stable, while the other 3 are doing well. Let's connect with Martina Bugri for some updates. Martina, what triggered this clash?
Police say they are unable to tell exactly what happened. Knowing that someone and I were returning to the community.
Martina, can you hear me? We'll go back to Martina for those updates later. Now, that's the physician assistant at the Karaga Hospital has been given us some details.
It was actually a bad case. I ignored some of the concerns of my colleagues They were shouting I should refer to Tamale. So then I told them to keep their calm. They will assess. If you don't assess the case very well, how would you be able to tell whether you'll be able to handle it or not? So upon assessment, I realized that though it was 50-50, I realized I could do the work. So I had them to support me, and they actually supported me 100%. Then we did the work, and we are all proud of ourselves.
Describe the extent of the damage that went.
The damage, for now, as I said, I think when they were about to cutlass him, he used the right arm to defend himself. They fractured the ulnar. Then he uses the right arm again. They fractured the wrist, and then the left last digit, that one was also fractured. That one even looked from them, but I was able to position it very well and then switch it. They also suffered scalp injuries, and all that were taken care of. Even the abdomen, they sliced the abdomen. So he was just coming in a pool of blood. Even if you have seen the ward in which we took care of him, you will realize the extent of the injuries. He lost a lot of blood, actually. And actually speaking, he lost a lot of blood. Even ambulance was standing by. They saw what happened, and then I told them we couldn't refer him at that stage, so they should go if anything at all. If they need be, I'll call them back. And God being so good, we are proud of ourselves. Because the man is alive and he's stable. We don't have to refer him to any facility again. We've been able to stabilize him, and we would manage to my home. And early this morning I was back waiting for the police, but officially they haven't come here. And the other 4 cases, we also did some suturing. They suffered scalp lacerations, though they were deep, so we couldn't do otherwise than to suture. So we nicely shaped them and then got their wounds sutured, and they are all doing well. The third one, for him, we didn't do much because when we came upon assessment, we realized that he was just having musculoskeletal pain. He didn't suffer any external injuries, so we gave some painkillers, and he's also doing well.
You're live on the Pulse with me, Daniel Daze. Let's now take you live to the offices of the Chartered Institute of Marketing Ghana here in Accra, where there is currently a webinar about to begin. That webinar is on marketing during disruption. Marketing during disruption. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic is one of the greatest disruptions for the business world across the globe. But how well do you navigate the different times we're in and still send your message to your target audience? That's the crux of what we're going to learn during that webinar. My colleague Inshira Ado is there. I see Maximus Ametogo also standing by. Let's join them now.
Welcome to everyone joining us on the JoyNews channel, as well as on our social media platforms and on Zoom. You're welcome to the CIMG webinar series. This is the very first one, coinciding with the 31st Annual Marketing Performance Awards, which will come off later this week, in fact, on Saturday. Before we start, and I roll out the very essence of why we're doing this today, I would like to invite Mr. Prosper Mensah Atipo, who is a course director at CIMG, to kick us off with an opening prayer. Over to you, Prosper.
Thank you very much. We pray. Father, Lord, we are here gathered this afternoon to bring to Mother Ghana something bothering on COVID. Father, Lord, COVID has been an issue in Ghana. We are here this afternoon, Father Lord, to deliberate on this sensitive topic, COVID, and how it's brought about shifts in consumer behavior. We trust and believe, Father Lord, that after today's event, we are going to be able to inform the Ghanaian populace. We pray, Father Lord, for uninterrupted flow of this service here this afternoon. We are asking, Father Lord, for your presence over this event. And we ask, Father Lord, that if this whole thing comes to a successful end, we shall not cease to give you praise. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Prosper Mensa Atipo, for the opening prayer. So, why have we come together this afternoon for the webinar series? Well, we all are fully aware that a year ago, right about this time last year, we started hearing news from China about a cluster of respiratory virus, or a virus creating respiratory problems and diseases for people over there. Until January sometime in January, late January, the World Health Organization was unclear what was happening. Later, we were told that there was a virus which had been identified as a coronavirus, initially called the novel coronavirus. You fast forward, it was christened the SARS-CoV-2, which we all have come to know as COVID-19. It changed the way we do things and has disrupted the way consumers have behaved. It has disrupted the way work is done. In fact, it has disrupted even the way we consume entertainment and go about our lives within our homes and in our communities. It is of great importance for the marketing fraternity to understand the impact of COVID-19 and the consumer shift that it brought with it. And this webinar series is aimed at bringing some of the leading minds on the subject of marketing, analytics, data analysis, and understanding of consumer behavior together to have a conversation, a discourse, a sharing of ideas and minds on how our lives have been changed and how we can adapt to leverage everything we know and have learned so far, plus our resilience, to make an impact on the lives we have and the future that beckons at us. So that is the reason we're gathered today for the very first of the CIMG webinar series as part of the Marketing Week heralding the 31st Annual Marketing Performance Awards. Before we go any further, I'd like to welcome the National President of CIMG, Dr. Daniel Cassetti, to give us a welcome address and set the tone for the rest of the afternoon. Dr. Cassetti. Hi, Doc. I trust all is well with you. Doc, if you can hear me, we're ready to receive your welcome address.
Okay, thank you, Ishra. I think the issue is that from the beginning, there was no sound until now. So I don't know whether you will redo the intro or I should pick it up.
Okay, let me do that quickly. So if you, unfortunately, we may have had a technical challenge and you probably would not have heard the preamble. We're gathered today for the first in the series of webinar programs that the CIMG is bringing to us. And this is because if you go back 12 months ago, we heard of news of a virus in Wuhan. It was later christened and then came to be known as COVID-19 with its scientific name being SARS-CoV-2. It's changed the way we do things. It's changed the way we relate to our families. It's changed the way we do business. It's changed the way we work. It's changed the way consumers behave. And the topic, COVID-19 and the consumer shift, is an apt and important conversation that the fraternity within the marketing space can have a conversation around. So we're assembling some great minds so we can have a thought leadership chat about this particular situation we find ourselves in. After all, we still have life to live, and if we add all the insights we have and the lessons that we've learned over time and our resilience, we can look to a future that we can be bold to take a step into. And with that, I welcome Dr. Cassetti, who is the National President of CIMG, to give us his welcome remarks. Over to you, Doc. Doc, Over to you.
Thank you, Inshra. Patrons and fellows of the CIMG present, our three eminent panelists, the Governing Council and members of the CIMG, distinguished invited participants, media men and women, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted at the opportunity to welcome you all to this afternoon's webinar, put together by the Chartered Institute of Marketing Ghana in partnership with JoyNews from the Multimedia Group, as part of the celebration of the CIMG Marketing Week, which ushers in the 31st Annual National Marketing Performance Awards, slated for Saturday, the 14th day of November at the Labadi Beach Hotel. Let me use this opportunity to especially welcome the Multimedia Group who are partnering us today, and to also thank our three panelists for accepting to speak at this program. Ladies and gentlemen, as the moderator has said in setting the scene, we all woke up one fine day in February to the outbreak of a certain novel virus, COVID-19, ravaging nations, which later assumed the level of a pandemic, affecting virtually every country. Like every other progressive institute, the Chartered Institute of Marketing Ghana had no option but to immediately find new ways of doing business. We also immediately started playing the much-needed advocacy role of guiding organizations on how to approach marketing during economic downturn. This is evidence in our immediate alteration of the already outlined program for the year 2020. We have accordingly adopted a more appropriate theme consumers are adjusting to the new normal and are doing things differently. They purchase online and access products and services from the comfort of their homes and other remote locations via the power of the internet. The task of marketing organizations going forward is to continuously scan their environment to identify these changes in purchase behaviors, to be able to effectively target their customers for success. As we continue to say, let me reiterate once more that this is the time to find new ways to grow revenue lines and profits, as the old ways cannot yield much results. We have accordingly and carefully chosen a very rich panel to discuss today's topic from their various professional perspectives. And I have no doubt that they will each deliver to our satisfaction. It is my utmost pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to invite you as participants to listen as our eminent panelists do justice to the topic. Once again, on behalf of the Chartered Institute of Marketing Ghana, I welcome you all to this program. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cassetti, for the opening remarks. And as I did mention earlier, this is the very first of the webinar series, which is coinciding with the 31st Annual Marketing Performance Awards, which comes off this weekend at the Labadi Beach Hotel. And we're grateful to every one of you who've joined us, both on JoyNews channel, on the multi-TV platform, as well as on DSTV and all our streaming platforms, as well as via Zoom. You're very welcome. Let me get into introducing the panel this afternoon. We're joined by The digital lead and CEO of Pop Out, Mr. Maximus Ametogo, a certified digital marketing professional, a social media coach, a technology consultant, analytics specialist, and a conference facilitator, as well as a columnist. As a columnist, he's authored more than 80 articles that's been featured in a leading newspaper, the Daily Graphic, as well as been featured across several media platforms in this country, as well as across the ocean on the BBC. Maximus holds a beg your pardon. Maximus holds a digital marketing professional certification from the Digital Marketing Institute of Ireland and an alumnus of the University of Ghana. He will be speaking on leveraging digital marketing, that aspect relating to the consumer shift as a result of COVID-19. Next to Maximus, and is to my very extreme left, next to Maximus is Mr. Bright Lajakpo, is the Managing Director and CEO of PhD Media. Mr. Lajakpo is the founder of the Masterclass Accra, in addition to the hat of being the fearless leader of PhD. He also brought Science Meets Marketing, and a marketing professional, consummate and passionate, with over 22 years of experience in driving transformational growth and market leadership for businesses and brands in the telecoms industry, as well as consumer packaged goods industry across the continent. He's a pioneer at heart, has a challenger mindset, and an industry thought leader with a passion about trend spotting, a passion for trend spotting, pathfinding, and innovating for effective brand building. He says on the IAA, Africa's Rising Event Committee, the Executive Council of the Advertising Association of Ghana, and the Foods Advertising Regulation Committee of the Food and Drugs Administration right here in Ghana. And Bright will be speaking on leveraging on technology as far as COVID-19 and the consumer shift is concerned. And our third speaker is Mr. Lampe Omoyele. He's Managing Director of Nitro 121. Lampe is a widely respected business leader and mentor in the marketing and advertising industry in the sub-Saharan African region. He's currently Managing Director of one of West Africa's leading marketing, communications, and brand management companies, and founding partner at the Lucent Consulting Company, a business strategy and human capital development consultancy. Previously, he was MD of Nielsen West Africa. He was also the African Marketing Director, Family Nutrition for GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare. He's also, Marketing Director, Airtel Nigeria, Marketing Director of Cadbury East and Central Africa, Group Product Manager, Food and Drinks and Confectionery at Cadbury Nigeria. Lampe holds a BSc and MSc degree in biochemistry and is an alumnus of Lagos Business School, Fellow of the National Institute of Marketing Nigeria, Trustee of the Advertisers Association of Nigeria, Associate Member and Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria, and a member of the Advisory Council for Advertising Week Africa. He has chalked a very sterling career, and for more, I'll urge you to Google him and read more about him. He will be speaking on leveraging on marketing research and insights as far as COVID-19 and the consumer shift is concerned. And he will be our very first speaker. Lampe, thank you very much for making time for us. And apologies for keeping you waiting while we got ready to roll. So you will start us off with your presentation on leveraging marketing research and insights. Over to you, and welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, and good evening, everyone. I'd just like to confirm that you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And again, let me thank the Chartered Institute of Marketing of Ghana, Joy TV, and everyone else for inviting me and joining in this webinar. So as has already been indicated, I shall be sharing about the COVID-19 and the consumer shift and how businesses, brands can leverage marketing research and insights. So Basically speaking, fundamentally, there have been changes in the marketplace with the onset of COVID-19. And for any brands or businesses to succeed, they would need to be attuned to those changes. And how they get attuned is really important. And they can be attuned in terms of undergoing market research studies. It can be observational studies. It can just be based on the new trends that are emerging in the market. So what I'd like to share for a few minutes are some of the shifts that have been observed both globally and also within the African continent in terms of consumer shifts in trends with the onset of COVID-19. And I will then go on to share a few observations about some business sectors that have been impacted, whether positively or adversely, by those consumer shifts. And so what are some of those shifts in consumer attitudes and behavior that have been observed since COVID-19 changed the world, and also how consumers across the globe behave? One key theme that has been observed is that there has been increased focus on physiological and safety needs with a heightened health and safety concerns. Now, if we recall the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the base need of people, of consumers, is physiological needs. It then goes on to the next stage of safety needs, then love and belonging, esteem, and then self-actualization. A key shift that COVID has triggered is that people have come down lower in terms of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. The focus in the past 9 to 10 months, especially within the context of Africa, is not so much about self-actualization. While that is still important, there has been a heightened focus on health and safety. So down to the base level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that is very important for brands. And I'll signal how some brands have tried to address this and what some brands or other brands need to do to address this shift in consumer attitude and behavior. Secondly, one of the things that has happened is that people have begun to shop more consciously. They're concerned about staple foods and hygiene. Because of the health and safety concerns, buying packaged foods has taken on a more deliberate approach. Consumers are beginning to buy more of local and embracing e-commerce. So again, buying local and embracing e-commerce. And that speaks to opportunities for local markets, especially when most of the world was locked down and imports and exports were a challenge. Air travel was a challenge. And therefore, consumers began to look at what was available locally for them to buy. And then also because of the safety and health concerns, the increasing embracing of e-commerce as opposed to just going to the brick and mortar where they could be exposed to virus infection itself. A third shift that has been observed in the past 9 to 10 months is that in order to manage the imposed lockdown, albeit the world has become more open now, but as we know, various parts of the world like the United Kingdom are going back again to an imposed lockdown. Consumers began to use digital a lot more to connect, to learn, and to play. And suddenly, Zoom became the metaphor of linking up with people, of learning as work from home became very, very important. That's how people began to make connections. And then one of the things that we therefore have observed is that this new behaviors, these shifts in behavior have become what you might call the new normal, and brands and businesses would need to adjust to that. So these observations are some of the things that happened, especially in the first few months of the advent of COVID-19. Now, different parts of the world are beginning to try to return to a semblance of routine, but still operate with a renewed consciousness in terms of health and safety. Now, what we've also found is that because of the economic impact, there has been rising inflation in many markets. Consumer disposable income has weakened. and consumer confidence has declined. With tighter budgets on the part of consumers and a rise in conscious consumption, consumers are beginning to switch and looking for more affordable items. They're looking to swap to choose different packages that they feel safe with or more affordable. And they're also squeezing in terms of rationalizing the quantity and frequency of consumption. And one of the things we also found is that consumers are less brand loyal. They are more experimental, and they are seeking trustworthy brands. So for any brand to succeed in this season, they have to be brands that consumers trust. And so the aspects about branding become increasingly important. Trust is a key currency of building brand equity. So the stronger the brand equity of a brand in this season, the higher the potential for the brand to succeed. A further shift that has been observed is that increasingly consumers are seeking convenience. And as I said earlier on, they are turning to online shopping to meet more of their own household needs. So for brands, therefore, they need to be developing e-commerce platforms. The brick and mortar shops, supermarkets, open markets would not be sufficient in the new world. E-commerce is going to be very important, and for Africa, it's going to accelerate. And a further shift is, again, reinforcing the point made earlier on. They spend a lot more time online, social networking, online music and radio, online reading, video streaming. So for marketing people, they're going to see how do you connect with consumers on these various platforms because of these shifts. And so for the shifts that have happened, as many of us would know, tourism and aviation have been impacted significantly, as well as hospitality. There have been job losses due to closure of hotels and restaurants. The oil and gas industry globally has been impacted. Out-of-home entertainment, going out to movie theaters, art exhibitions, musical concerts have been impacted. And for those who play in my industry as well, we found that revenues have dropped in advertising, especially in terms of out-of-home media. But we have also seen certain businesses that have excelled in this period. So telecommunications, as people spend more time at home, connecting with one another, working from home, looking for in-home entertainment, data usage has increased. So telco businesses like MTN and Airtel have prospered. E-commerce businesses have also prospered in this season. Logistics, delivery businesses have prospered. Healthcare, because of increased health consciousness and safety, has also increased, and also in-home entertainment. So these shifts clearly call that it's a time to do things differently on the parts of brands and marketers. And doing things differently is because brands and marketers need to see how they make a difference. And the question to ask from the consumer shifts to brands and marketers and businesses is, with the shifts in consumers, in terms of the trends, in terms of what they're looking for, what problems will you be solving as a business owner or a marketer or a brand owner? What needs will you be meeting? What wants will you be creating? And what culture will you be changing that can leverage the shifts in consumer attitudes and behavior? As I bring this to a close before any further questions or comments, this is a season. What COVID has led to, has triggered, is that businesses will need to drive brand loyalty in this time of a weakened consumer confidence. Now, cash-conscious consumers will avoid brands that don't provide them with value for money. So there are going to be 4 A's that are going to be really, really important on the part of consumers as I wrap this part up. It's going to be about building brand equity, building brand trust. So awareness and building brand equity. It will be about value for money. If you want to call it affordability. So value for money is going to be very critical in this season, and it is already very critical. Then availability, not just relying on brick and mortar, but also leveraging e-commerce. And in terms of packaging, there has to be trust built because of the health and safety concerns. And then ultimately assurance, which is trust, is going to be really, really important on the parts of consumers. So I would close at this point. These are some of the thoughts that I would like to share. And I'm sure when we have other panel conversations, we can build up on some of those thoughts. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Lankwe, for the expose. I mean, very insightful stuff, and we'll interrogate more of it in subsequent engagement on this particular webinar series. I'm going to go over to Maximus Ametogo, who's going to be speaking to us on the subject of leveraging on digital marketing. And now, following on from Lankwe's presentation, I think it's just apt that Maximus, you take over and then deal with this one.
All right. Thank you very much, Inshira. Thank you to Mr. Jekum and Cimg for this particular opportunity. I think COVID has redefined the way we behave and even our culture, right? The physical connection is becoming, in fact, is becoming a distraction, or is becoming a place, our physical connection is now being restricted because of the COVID protocols that we need to observe, and the fact that we cannot transact business in person, we cannot transact business the usual way that we do that. And for businesses, you have to come to that understanding that we have been formatted by this particular pandemic, and we are acquiring a new culture that is changing what we consume, how we consume it, how the processes we go through to even make a purchasing decision. And the fact that COVID requires us to socially distance. Your product is now sitting in your shop. Your services are now with you. You need to have a channel to pipe those messages to people so that they are aware of what you are selling, what they need, and the value you are offering. And the fact that there is a technology breach which digital marketing, comes in. So we have various channels that we can use to market or send your messages across to your audience because they are now online. COVID has headed all of us onto the digital platform, and by research, almost 700 million people have been moved onto the online platform because that is the only way you can connect with family and friends and do your usual stuff, whether you are learning, whether you are working, or buying stuff on the internet, or you want to even trade your product or services. So very importantly, we need to know how COVID has redefined the way we behave, how our habits have changed based on the fact that we need to socially distance, and the fact that people cannot walk physically into the shop to have that physical interaction or engagement with you as a business in order to make a purchasing decision. The next thing is, how do you make sure that your product gets to those people? So you need to look at your channels, your social media channels. How are you going to rework it so that it becomes more relevant? Of course, it means that COVID has to be the context for your messaging and how you transact business with the people. Your channels are very important. Your website has to be functional, so it's no more the usual website where you have just your profile or a catalog of products. You need to add conversion, features onto it so that people can either buy the product, place an order, or request that it should be delivered to them wherever they are. So your website needs to be functional. You need to redesign your website, put a commerce front to it so people can buy and pay for your service. And what I've realized is that we have a convergence of digital, mobile money, and delivery, right? So people go onto your platforms and buy whatever they want or request it, and then they pay via mobile money, and then the product is delivered to them wherever they are. And of course, it means that with COVID being the context, you need to know how you package your product and have it transported and delivered to the end user without contaminating it with COVID or for the other person contracting the COVID. So your design, your processes of buying and then delivering it, and then the payment, now that we even have COVID, people are no more using physical cash, so they are doing mobile transactions, they are doing digital payment. for a business, if you don't have a Momo account or if you don't have a digital payment gateway, you are cutting yourself short. So it's very important to have your payments digitized as well, so that if I'm interested in buying your product, if I request for it on your online platform, whether it's your website or your social media channel, I can just send the money through a Momo or a card payment or any online channel convenient for me as your consumer. Then you can have the transaction completed and my product delivered to me. So your payment has to be digitized. It's very important. Now, if you have any other platform, whether you have a video channel on YouTube to sell your product, you need to demonstrate the product to people. You need to storify what you are selling. You need to know how you can contextualize your product to the people who are always on their phone screens or your laptop screens or tablets, so they can make the purchasing decision. It shouldn't be difficult. You should make everything easier, convenient, and they should be able to follow some easy steps. So your product has to be packaged properly and delivered to the right people. So that is the commodity aspect. Your communication aspect, which is another thing you have to look out for, is how you package your messaging. How do you make it very relevant? If you have COVID as the core theme of content that is traveling all over the online channels, how do you make sure yours is within that same pipeline so that you are not caught up in the tag of irrelevant content because you are not tapping into the COVID content that is trending? So how you message, how you send your communication across has to be straightforward, to the point, so it becomes relevant to the person buying. Your communication on your website, your communication on your social media channel, your communication on your email channel, and your communication on any other, whether messaging channel like WhatsApp and Telegram and all the other messaging platform, has to be clear, straightforward. People don't have the time and attention span that they hitherto will have for a brand that they love, because they have a lot of things distracting them and seeking their attention. So you have to make the process so easy, so convenient for those people. Now you need to also look at your content. How are you going to develop a content that is, simple to understand, straightforward, selling your value without vagueness, right? Very important. Your pictures has to be on point. Your pictures must be very, very clear. Your videos, the audio has to be clean. Your video has to be crisp. Your messaging has to be so strong, focusing on conversion. And then the messaging or action that you want the person to take is very, very important to focus on that. So that when you are creating video content, you know the channels that you are going to broadcast it on, whether on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or you are going to send it to your WhatsApp recipient. You have to design it short, straight to the point, with the core message and then the call to action clearly stated. And the last thing is your conversion. What do you want to achieve? Which links to your objectives? Knowing the culture that the consumers are currently, forming with COVID, what is your conversion? Are you going to acquire new customers, or you are trying to serve the existing customers, or you are just going to market your product and services, or make your brand strong, position it in the minds of people? So you need to look at that. So when people are coming to your page, engaging with your social media platforms, your fans are growing, then you know you are achieving your results. If they are going to your website and placing orders and buying your products, then you know you are achieving your results. If you are going on your social media pages and commenting about the product you've just posted, how much it is, how it can be delivered to them conveniently with all the protocol governing COVID observed, those are the things that you need to look out for. So for a business, you have to go through those channels and make sure that you exploit all the digital channels that are available. You need to format, let me re-emphasize again, redesign or reformat your website so that it becomes an e-commerce channel. So people don't just come there to read content, they come there to transact business with you as somebody who sells a product or somebody who has a service that people need to subscribe to. Now, there's also a modeling aspect that you need to look out for in your pricing. So just like we have sampling as a marketing strategy for people to have a taste of your product before they make a purchasing decision, what we call freemium on the digital pricing model, where people consume some content for free, then they can pay for the premium version of those content. Those are the things that you also want to look out for. How do you make sure that you get your pricing model very right, so you don't gate people off by your pricing, but they come and consume the product and then they can buy other products. Of course, you need to also offer discounts. If you don't motivate them, they cannot take action. So you need to also get people also onto your channel. So you can say, okay, if you refer 5 people, you get 5% discount on this product. And if you give us a repeat business, you're going to get 10% discount. So you need to motivate people. You need to give them something that they see as value, so they can reference or give referrals to other friends, so they can come onto your online channels and make a purchasing decision. It's very important. Just putting your product there is not enough draw for the consumers. You need to dangle something in front of them. You need to give them something that they can, see as valuable. You give them some discounts, special deals, and they will readily take a decision on action on buying your product. So for the digital marketing, in fact, that is becoming the future. Now, it's not just the marketplace now, it's now the market, where people come and buy product, when people can come and buy digital version of your product. So it's very, very important to have that understanding. How do we format your salon into a digital, an e-commerce platform? How do we format somebody who is selling a shoe in a small shop in some corner somewhere? How do you digitize your channel? How do you go onto the social media platform, which is free, and then you start growing your audience from there? And then how do you use even WhatsApp? In Ghana, by the data that I found, 87% of internet users in Ghana use WhatsApp. It means that WhatsApp users are around 12 million people. How do you use that platform as a primary channel to even market your product, push your product to people, your customers, and then they respond by either buying that particular product, sending money to you via mobile money, and you having the product delivered to them. So whether you're a small company, a medium-sized company, or a large company, there are various channels on the digital platform that you can adapt to engage your customers. Digital is not the new culture. Digital is not the new way of selling your product. Digital is the marketplace for the future. So you need to plan and strategize so that you can acquire those customers. If you don't do it, somebody is going to acquire your customers and they may not come back to you again. So it's very important to have that done. And thank you very much for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Maximus, for your take on how we can leverage digital marketing. Of course, we all woke up one day and we started Zooming. And as Bright in previous engagements has said, that the world is moving to the point of singularity, where man and machine would coexist. We didn't think that it would have been thrust upon us so quickly.
Right.
And with that, Bright, I'd like to welcome you and hand over to you as you speak on leveraging technology around COVID-19 and the consumer shift.
Thank you very much. Thank you to CIMG for putting this together. This is the kind of fora we need in these times. My brother Maximus has always been an evangelist. And if he was a pastor, his church would be full by now. Having said so, I think that what COVID has done is to propel and accelerate. I heard Lampe use the word accelerate, and that's what it's done. Mm-hmm. What it would have taken us 10 years to arrive at, we're probably going to achieve that in 18 to 24 months. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at technology at the forefront of all that has gone on. That technology is redefining and reshaping consumer behavior. That consumer behavior is driving new business growth and causing some businesses to rethink and rejig the way they operate in any shape and form. I'll quote Noah Harari, who wrote *Sapiens* and *Homo Deus*. It says, "We must act quickly and decisively. We should also take into account the long-term consequences of our actions. Yes, the storm will pass, humankind will survive, most of us will still be alive, but we will inhabit a different world." So this is the reality. That for those of us looking at it coming back to normal, we're sorry, it's not going to come back to normal. Very sorry, because this train has left, it's not going to stop. And so we need to quickly, decisively change. Change is upon us. Change is happening again. So for the hat I wear as the leader of a media agency, when this went on and lockdown happened, we decided to do some analysis. Especially after lockdown, we looked at consumer behavior in terms of media consumption habits before lockdown, during lockdown, and after lockdown. On the surface of it, it doesn't look like much has changed or changed. But when you drill deeper, especially when you go onto the digital channels, where people consume more on demand, rather than think trust on them, which is more of the traditional media, they were now showing us what was more important to them than the other. So people were searching for more information. The Google Trends data shows spikes around April, mid-April, thereabout, on information about COVID. People were searching a lot. The trends in digital would be more precise in giving us insight into consumer behavior and consumer habits. So it's important for us to listen to people like Massimo's even more and begin to now see how, as people who hunt the consumer, as marketers who look for what the consumer is doing for us to meet their needs and make our businesses succeed, we need to now look at the channels we use, the approaches we have used to understand consumers. It may become faster and better if we were more digital. But because this is not really over yet, because we're looking at second wave and perhaps third waves in some cases, and lockdowns have come back, like Lampe alluded to. In North America, it's probably going to happen. In Europe, it's on already. We need to dig deep. We need to go back into what has made us survive as human beings. So there are three things that have made our ancestors survive and given us a chance to also survive. They mastered a few things: energy capture, how to use fire to cook food, to release energy. They also mastered how to cooperate, fight, but at the same time also do friendship, diplomacy, collaboration. They also had to master how to extract meaning from information they get from the environment, facts and also fiction, data analytics, insights. These are things that made our forefathers, our ancestors survive. We need to go back into these three areas and find out how we use that as people who deal with consumers and study consumer behavior and actually do products that meet consumer need. See how we can tap into that. And these have all been enabled by technology. So if you look at the axe, it's like an extension of our arm. If you look at the bicycle, it's like an extension of our legs. If you look at the camera, it's like an extension of our eyes. If you look at the phone, it's like an extension of your voice, and this times your eyes as well, because there are cameras on phones. So we've always used technology. We've always applied technology, even in the way we use our body and how we are allowed technology to extend our body parts. So in that regard, it is not a case that we would experience 100 years of progress in the 21st century. We're probably going to experience about 20,000 years of progress in the 21st century, triggered by COVID and the like. And this was a thinking of Ray Kurzweil of Google, the engineering director of Google. And so we think that what we are in now is an adjustment to the new normal. We are finding equilibrium. We are finding balance after the shake-up. And all that has forced maturation. Your business has to mature more quickly in adoption of digital. You have to arrive to closer to perfection more quickly than you would have imagined. For some businesses, you have to reinvent the way you do your things, and that will bring about a lot of transformation. And along with it will be a lot of legacy. So the COVID effect or the impact of COVID will leave very positive, of course, negative ones too, but a big legacy behind. And we see new horizons. Two key mega trends that I want to talk about, which is going to be driven also by technology, is about external controls. Governments have become more powerful. Apart from governments, institutions that control our behavior has become more powerful. The consumer too is taking control. They're taking control by shopping differently than the way they used to shop. They are taking control in the way they behave culturally. The way they go to church, for example, has changed. So we need to see that as we come under external control, we also push back with our own type of controls. People are using more apps. Artificial intelligence has been embraced faster. It's always been coming, but it's leapfrogged, as it were. So technology is here and it's supposed to help us. So there's big government now because governments are using more digital approaches and they can reach far more people than they used to reach before. There's big data. There's more control from the data point of view. GDPR is becoming more and more relevant. And so governments that do not have even data control and privacy on their books will have to now define how they do that, because all of us are thrust onto the digital spaces where data is collected from us. The everything from home now is a trend, and it's also a behavior by the consumer. Retail is revolutionized. Now health has become very, very big, and digital health for that matter. So what should we do as marketers? Two key actions. Start your growth engines. Start your growth engines around innovation. Draw up your innovation roadmap. Invest in technologies. Set the budget and just agree on your values, on what you want to stand for in that regard. See your physical route to market as offline assets, so that you develop online approaches to support those offline assets and drive traffic to that place. It means that you have to perfect your digital approaches. It also means that you have to create experiences. You talked about that, experiences online and offline. You also have to make sure you identify those who share the same values as you and work with them and collaborate for you to move faster. So the future will be faster, further, cheaper, deeper, in more ways, in more days. This is how Thomas Friedman put it. So what we're looking at is that the human need is actually what is behind technological growth. Technology is good for us, but it's actually the human being that makes a demand on technology. So when we embrace technology, we fuel the next investment into the next technology. So we live in a culture of abundance, not scarcity any longer. And that drives technological growth. We also live in a culture of access to things, because we have mobile devices that drive access. We also live in a time of efficiency. We can now take efficiency for granted. Things can happen cheaply and cost effectively. So we now need to focus more on effectiveness in addition to that efficiency that is being driven. So as you've heard me say many times, it's all about how we're using cloud, for example, how we're using 5G, which is coming, how we're using artificial intelligence. And these are recombinant innovations. They support each other, they feed off each other. And as you heard me say on other platforms too, data, devices, and disruptions are definitely upon us. That's the value chain. Data driven from devices that spur disruptions. And so all marketers must be aware of these big trends. Over the next decade or so, these are the key trends and the key dynamics that will shape any marketing effort for that matter. Ishra.
Thank you very much, Bright, for the insights on leveraging technology in light of COVID-19 and the consumer shift. We're going to go into a very, let's have a fireside chat, and then we'll open up the floor for contributions from our audience as well. But I'd like to start off with this. And Lampe, if you're there with me, I would like to kick it all off with you, being the man who spoke to us on the leveraging data and research. Now, quantum evolution, if I could coin that from what Bright is saying, that we're going to jump not 100 years in this generation, but we're going to be doing this in tens of thousands. And I'd like to call that quantum evolution. Now, if that is possible, what would you say is that which the marketers must consider as a smart approach to tap into the opportunity that this growth spectrum that's impending presents to us? I think you're muted at the moment, Lampe.
So, yes, so I'll
Wonderful.
take it from the consumer approach. And has always been said, whatever technologies, whatever marketing ideas that we have to put the consumer at the heart of it. And so for marketers to take advantage of the shifts, the first thing is that you need to know that those shifts are happening and have happened. So marketers have to be very close, if not closer to consumers today. And then in terms of developing the strategy, the marketing strategy, the brand strategy, the consumer has to be at the heart of it. So more than ever before, marketers need to be immersing in the consumer's shoes, in walking in the shoes of the customer, and indeed not just reacting to shifts, but anticipating those shifts, and therefore getting the products, the services, and the various things that are going to address the customer needs or customer wants. So more than ever before, there's a one word that is going to increasingly be in focus, and that is empathy. Marketers have to increase empathy with consumers. Once you have empathy with consumers and have an increased understanding of the needs and motivations, and you're able to anticipate the shifts in trends, then you're signaling way up in terms of the journey to succeeding with customers, and therefore deploying the appropriate elements of the marketing mix to address the customer needs and motivations.
Thank you very much, Lampe, for that. And I like the fact that, Lampe talks about that we must walk in the shoes of the customer. As a skeptic will say, it's easier said than done, because a lot of people who hitherto COVID-19 would not embrace video technology, the platforms we use to meet today. I mean, I found myself in the middle of April recording 4 episodes of my show over Zoom. And so, it's something we've had to embrace. Now, Zoom may have had to catch up quickly with the demand, but where the trend at the moment, or the prevailing circumstances and trends, do not force consumers to come your way, as marketers, you're trained to go out there and fish, right? How do you preempt, how do you do this jobs on everyone, where you're thinking, okay, smartphones, people are going to want to carry their music, their books, and their documents all on one small device. And you go about making it enchanting enough for them to do so. Let me start with you on this one. From a digital marketing perspective, how do I create that demand for the next big thing?
That's a big question, right? From the consumer point of view, like he said, if you're able to understand consumer behavior, you will see the value in your product by the way they use the product, the demand for new features, because they're going to give you feedback on how they're using the product and the level of convenience that they have when they are using your product. So if you listen to the customer, they will redesign your existing product to a valuable product that you'll be surprised at the level of value that you're going to offer the other community of consumers. I remember the CEO of WhatsApp talking about how Ghanaians use WhatsApp in creative ways that they never imagined WhatsApp could be used for. And that should tell you that if you give consumers a very simple, functional product, they are going to redesign it into a product, a more useful, more valuable, more profitable product than you can imagine. And I'm sure Zoom knows that, and that's why they've been able to increase the user base with all this pandemic happening. The disruption is positive for them. And of course, Facebook and the likes are also introducing new features because of the need and then the user experience that the existing users are having or interacting with their products. So the users redesign your product, they redefine the value of your product with time. Now, Inshira, I'm scared for one thing for marketers. What is going to happen is that the marketers must have the intelligence to build the mind of the artificial intelligence and softwares, because the algorithm are becoming the marketing executives or the sales executives, because the algorithm now understand the consumers on the social media platform more intimately, more closely and more precisely than the marketers can do physically. So Facebook, when you drop a product by way of post on the platform, Facebook will distribute that content for you when you pay for it to the right people, and you're going to get a better conversion than sending marketers physically to go and sell to people. So automation is going to redefine how marketing is done. Algorithms are becoming the new marketing sales executives. And if you are into marketing and you don't move into that particular space where you can help software developers, when you can help platforms design how the consumer must behave or must think, so they build the mind of the algorithm, you are going to lose your skill set. Your skill set is going to be irrelevant because anybody anywhere can just instruct Facebook algorithm to sell for them, and they will do it on their behalf. Softwares are going to do that on their behalf, and that is going to happen. And even though we want the consumer to also be the pathfinder for the new product designs, what is going to happen is that the consumers are also going to kill your business.
Interesting point. Maximus, Bright called you an ambassador, not a doomsday prophet.
Exactly.
But I mean, look, the fact of the matter is this, that I don't think this is a doomsday prophecy in any shape or form. Right. And I will go back to, I think, recent numbers that the World Economic Forum put out there, that digitization was going to create it was actually going to, first of all, take away 70 million jobs. And that seems like doomsday, right? However, the same digitization was going to create in excess of 97 million jobs.
Right.
So really, the tech that's available today and the AI that's doing a lot of the stuff that hitherto we would have done may be taking away stuff from us, but we will be able to do new things. Now, Bright, what is it about tech? Isn't tech so scary and beyond our basic comprehension that, we may never be able to reposition ourselves to allow tech to handle one side of the work divide, and then we still complement and bring about a certain level of, improvement to our entire lot?
So, like I said earlier, we actually drive tech. We drive it as we
but
human
we wrote
beings.
the code, right? Before the code started learning.
Exactly. It's only to satisfy the consumer need that the technology and the product is designed. So I'm going back about 2 decades plus to one consultant called Joe Appiah, who trained me in entrepreneurship. And he tried to change the 4 P's into 4 C's. And guess what? He said the product was consumer need. The price was cost to satisfy. The promotion was communication. And the place was convenience.
Wow.
You know, so it speaks to what Lampe was talking about regarding empathy.
Yeah.
You need empathy, even to be able to give technology its place, its rightful place, so that it's not an issue of doomsday prophecies and so on, but relevance to consumer need. And so purposeful brands will thrive. Brands that are more meaningful, brands that connect to the consumer's need will be more powerful, and they will grow disproportionately than ever before. And that's the kind of era we're in.
Interesting point. Lampe, I'm going to come to you in a moment, but before then, in fact, let me do that right now. Your time and your sterling career is taking you into very interesting spaces. I mean, you've worked with Nielsen, you've crunched numbers, you've looked at trends. Can you share with us some practical insights of how marketers today can take the stuff happening around us and start diving into the data so that they can use it to stay ahead of the curve?
Okay, thank you. Now, so the key thing is, data. So we talk a lot about big data, and we already alluded to that already on the panel. But the bigger issue is there's lots of data that is available to marketers. But the bigger piece is how are we as marketers able to generate insights from the data. It does take a certain skill, but even if we don't have the skill personally, we can actually look for those who have the skill. And how do you put together various pieces of data to generate insight? We have to therefore understand that the consumer today is leaving lots of footprints. So when we talk about big data, it's actually based on the footprint that consumers are leaving.
Absolutely.
Now, the real work is once we see those footprints, and I would say this, I think where marketers would have to succeed is how do we use big data or small data or research as a lighthouse and not a lamppost. And let me explain what I mean. Is marketers will have to stop using research as just a means of validating their hypothesis alone. So it's great to be able to use research to validate your hypothesis, but you must also leave room that your hypothesis may be challenged by the data and the insight you generate, such that you're thinking about, what don't I know? What is this data telling me about what I don't know? And therefore, when you see what you don't know, that is when you get insights that can then unlock the growth with customers. So I think that increasingly marketers will have to go with a very open mind. Yes, you can develop hypotheses, but you must go with an increasingly open mind to say, look, what don't I know? And how can this small data or big data, this observation, unlock growth for us, unlock growth for me in the future? So open-mindedness is going to be important. Being able to generate insights, not just information. There's a difference. Information is one piece, but what you do with the information to generate insights that can say, look, this is an insight in terms of how this customer or this consumer is currently behaving and how they will behave. It's not just the what, it now comes to the why. Insight is the why of what consumers are doing. So why would a consumer take a food beverage, for example, in the morning? The why. Because when you understand the why, then you'll be able to develop the right products and services to address the real human need. So we really have to go back to the real basics, understanding human need and the motivations behind those human needs and desires.
Lampe, you have just basically showed us that you spend quite a lot of time doing biochemistry. I mean, talking about hypothesis and validation and open-mindedness. But it leads me into something that Bright shared with us earlier. And he talked about how Thomas Friedman said that, the future is going to be faster, it's going to be further, it's going to be cheaper. And I like that cheaper in there. I'm concerned largely because when you talk about things being cheap, the little I know about crunching data today is nothing near the word cheap. Bright, how can we continue? Now, here's the thing. the appetite for the slice of the bottom line from shareholders increases year in, right?
Yeah.
Which means your target keeps going up.
Yeah.
But your margins are shrinking.
Yeah.
So how do you create a situation where you're able to do all these wonderful things, be open-minded, go down your merry way, and take things as they come, but quickly turn them into insights and not break the bank?
Innovation. Innovation is proven to be the only thing that can drive disproportionate growth, non-incremental, I mean, out of the box, right? So, yes, it can be very efficient if you innovate around how you collect data, how you crunch data. I think, it's my personal opinion, that there's a lot of waste. We are so fully resourced with tools and technologies to cheapen, quote unquote, I mean, to lower costs than we try to tap. There's a lot of waste. The abundance of technology at our disposal should make it affordable enough for us to crunch data and glean a lot of insights. But we are stuck in our ways, in our past, and are not open, like Lampi said, they are not open-minded about what we don't know. We want to validate what we know already. And we will continue to spend more money for less output if we don't open our minds to what science, for example, can tell us about what actually is happening, which is most of the time different what we think should happen. And Byron Sharp's book, How Brands Grow, focuses on what marketers don't know. And it's become controversial, but it's all about empirical evidence of what actually works, not what you expect to work.
So it's about following the data.
Yes.
And gleaning from it.
Absolutely.
Right. Just before we carry on, I'd like to invite our audience on Zoom and if you're watching us on social media as well, you could send, or tweet at me at GHRainmaker and throw your questions into the box and let's have this conversation. But if you're on Zoom, you can use the Q&A button and type your questions. We'll field the questions, and if not, you can try the hands up button, and we'll try and bring you into the conversation so we can hear your thoughts. And as much as possible, please try and keep it concise. I think we're going for another 15 minutes before we wrap up. It's been a very nice conversation. I can't ask all the questions, so I'd like to hear from you as well. So join us with your own thoughts. Mr. Maximus.
Yes.
Big data. Big data is here. We've talked about how today we can use technology to actually, disaggregate big data and cheaply. So I'm a small tabletop business looking to jump on the AFC-AFTA train. I have big appetite. How do I, first of all, start looking attractive across the digital spectrum to people beyond my border today, and do it in a way that is innovative enough so that my growth curve is a quantum jump and is disproportionate than what I've put in it?
I think it all depends on data, because data needs to be inform the kind of decision you make in terms of the products that you are selling. So then there must be a need beyond your geography for it to be relevant outside of that particular geography. So it comes to the customer need, right? So if you're able to glean some data and of course gain some insights from it, then you can also take informed decision as to the kind of products that will be of interest to people outside of your geographical area, right? So for me, I always say that money is the business. Usually we are stuck to the, when I sell shoes, it's shoes. But which kind of shoes are people interested in? At what point in time? Because if the customer is your pathfinder, they will tell you what shoe they need at every point in time and how they want it. Okay, if I've been able to engage you physically in your shop, now I've built that trust that if you say you are selling a brown shoe is of this quality, I don't doubt it. Then there's that trust there. So if you go onto the digital platform, I can place an order for the same shoe because knowing that I'm going to get the same quality of shoe that I'll hitherto get, if I walked into the shop, so if I'm getting it digitally, bingo, and then word of mouth will spread your channel, and the people outside of your geographical location will start placing order for it. Now, if you're making use of very smart platforms with analytics back end, then you don't need to worry yourself because the software is going to build the data for you. So you have all the records of the purchases, what time they bought it, who bought it, the demography of the people who bought it, whether some of the products were bought at a particular season or at a particular point in time in the year. All those data will be at the back end. The analytics will show, the dashboard will show you all that. Then when you need to glean insights from it, it becomes easier. But if you're using traditional paper and pen, medium of recording, and they don't have a way of translating the physical hard copy into a soft copy and digitizing it, you can't even glean insights from the data because you will not be able to even compute it well for you to get the right insights from the data sets that you have. So start with the customer and then use very smart platforms, simple platforms, and be able to grow your business from there.
Okay. So, I think this is a question that was addressed to Lampe, but because you are a trend spotter as well, I'd like to get your thoughts on that as well. But Lampe, this is for you. It's from Agnes Essa, who says, you've talked about some shifts, and they're very interesting. However, could you share with us some reference reports that we can also go and feast our eyes on as far as these shifts that you talked about are?
Well, Nielsen has done a lot of research before COVID onset and the impact of COVID, and actually did analysis of how it impacted various sub-regions in Africa. So what I could do is send to the CIMG excerpts of the reports that has been done by Nielsen over the past 9 to 10 months.
I like the way you said excerpts. It reminds me of a pastor friend of mine. He starts the conversation and says, for the rest, buy the book.
Exactly.
I like that. Exactly. Yeah, Maximus just captured it perfectly. This is freemium to premium, right?
Exactly, freemium. So you get a taste of it, and then you can potentially
and then you buy the rest. Okay. Right. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think talking about reports and so on, I'm actually looking at my screen here. One e-commerce report, and e-commerce is an eye-opener, in this all that has happened so far. And this is consumer e-commerce average revenue per user, Apple, versus GDP per capita. So whilst countries like our country, Ghana, we don't have very high figures, absolute figures in terms of e-commerce spends. When you adjust the Apple for e-commerce around GDP per capita, when you do the adjustment, we actually rank very high. So I'm looking at some ranking from China to South Korea through UK, and Ghana is like number 7.
Wow.
On that rank. So, and this is as of January this year.
This is revenue per user.
Adjusted for GDP per capita.
Adjusted for GDP per capita. That's an interesting insight.
And so when you look at it from that perspective, there's a lot going on in terms of e-commerce that we really haven't really measured and taken notice of. And this report is Hootsuite, and We Are Social.
Yes.
All right.
I have some data here I can share with you.
Okay, I'll give you 35 seconds to do that.
So we spent almost 1.2 billion on e-commerce spend as a category on online products. So looking at fashion and beauty, we spent $250 million last year. Electronics and physical media, $225 million. Food and personal care, $102 million. Furniture and appliances, $132 million. Toys and do-it-yourself and hobbies, right? $119 million. Travel, including accommodation, $432.5 million. Digital music, $16 million. Video games, $37 million. That is e-commerce spent by category in Ghana in 2019.
And that's very interesting. Now, depending on what you want to do as a marketer, that data either tells you about saturation or opportunity.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So let me go back to, and I'm going to work my way back. Lampe, I started with you, and I would like to end with you. I'd like to take your parting words as we get ready to wrap up. What would be your final thoughts? It is evident that change is upon us. Whether we happen to change will happen. So how do we go forward as marketers to ensure that even when we're caught unawares, we're able to reach into our bag of resilience and keep forging ahead?
Okay. Let me paraphrase a saying that the dinosaur is extinct today because it was not able to quickly adapt to the change in the environment. And therefore, for marketers, even if you've not been able to anticipate the change in consumer attitudes and behavior, it's really important that you are nimble and agile to adapt to those changes and respond extremely quickly. So adaptability is going to be extremely important. But even better than adaptability is, again, to paraphrase Peter Drucker, who said that the best way to predict the future is to create it. Let me repeat that. The best way to predict the future is to create it. So understanding the customer, putting the heart of the customer, anticipating their needs, understanding their motivations, and innovating to address their needs and motivations will be the best way to win. But even if you're a late starter, you're not an early adopter, quickly adapting is very important for survival. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lampe, for joining us and sharing your wealth of experience and insights with us. Wish we could have done this a whole day. I'm enjoying myself so much. Let me come to Bright Lajapo. Your parting words.
So technology by itself, and here I paraphrase Steve Jobs, that technology by itself is nothing, really. But it is when you put technology in the hands of people, that is when you see the real deal. Smart things come out because they use technology. Fast things come out. Efficiency comes to bear. That's when you apply technology. So technology and people together is what makes it happen.
Right. Awesome stuff. Yeah. I like that. Thanks very much, Bright. And finally to you, Maximus.
So digital is the new traditional marketing channel.
Thank you.
That's it. You won't talk too much. It's digital is the new marketing channel. I'd like to wrap up. From all I've heard, if I sum it all up, I mean, from digital marketing, data, and tech, is that in life happens. It happens to you, or you can happen to it. And it will start off with some investment into mining data, and that will yield insights with which you can engender innovation. We will be bringing this to a close. At the moment, I would like to call on the CIMG National President, Dr. Daniel Cassetti, to give us his closing remarks. Dr. Cassetti, I hope you're still on the call with us. If you could give us your closing remarks while Mr. Mensah Atipo stands by to give us the closing prayer. So, Dr. Cassetti, over to you. Dr. Cassetti? Okay. I think that while we wait for him, there's one question that I would like to... So, well, again, I'll come to... I'll take 30 seconds off you, Lampe, and 30 seconds from Bright. What would you recommend as next steps for those who are still crawling in the digital space?
Well, simple. Just learn. Just quickly learn what you can and get started.
Okay.
The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So just get started. That's what I would say.
Okay, right.
Well, technology is all around. Technology is all around us. Look for what you need and what works for you. Don't say, I don't have money, I can't afford it. Don't say, I can't afford it. Ask yourself, how can I afford it? And that makes it easier for you to be able to fund your technologies that can spur up your growth. I think that's as simple as it is.
That's fantastic. So if Dr. Cassetti, I think, is ready for us, we'll take the closing remarks before we end this webinar series. Doc, over to you.
Well, thank you, Ishra. Let me thank our three eminent panelists for their wonderful deliveries. We appreciate also the contributions of all participants for joining and, observing all the house rules. That COVID-19 has come to stay, in my view, does not necessarily mean that the virus will be with us here all the time. Maybe if we are lucky, we may find a vaccine very soon to end COVID-19. What I think will remain with us going forward is our way of life, whether as individuals, groups as in families, businesses, or nations. We simply have to find new ways to doing everything to be able to meet the changing lifestyles of our consumers. We have agreed here this afternoon that consumer purchase behaviors have changed and will continue to change. Consumers are moving from offline to online. To be able to target them effectively, we need to employ the services of technology to understand the new ways and to be able to address these changing needs better than the competition. As marketers, we must look beyond purchase behaviors to include everything that marketers do, be it branding, research, product development, product management, customer service, sales management, etc. We must simply find smarter ways of ensuring marketing effectiveness, even if we remain in our rooms. That is, we don't need to be physically present to be able to perform. Let me be a little personal. I started working from home 2 weeks ahead of the partial lockdown in Ghana, way back in March. We are in November and I still operate from home, and my effectiveness has not been affected. Indeed, I find myself being more productive, spending 2 hours every morning in traffic and 2 hours every evening in traffic. That means I have a better, healthier working life. This is because I work for a progressive multinational institution. Local companies must emulate such good practices as part of the new normal. Can you imagine if each of us on this call now was allowed to work from our various hometowns? I got to the Cimg project office at the UPSA this afternoon, and 2 people were having a conversation. They said they had a need for a fridge in the office and they needed it this afternoon. One option was to sit in the car and go around shopping. The other option, as proposed by one of them, was to go online and find a fridge. As I was standing there with them, within 30 minutes of going online, a fridge was delivered and they paid them. The watchword for marketers is to learn how to leverage technology for doing everything that we do. I think these are the lessons that we have learned this afternoon going forward. And we call on all organizations, all business enterprises to continue to find new ways how to leverage technology to run their businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cassetti, for summing up what has been a very engaging afternoon of great minds. A big thank you to Langpe, to Bright, and to Maximus. And we're grateful to all who joined us. And the questions and the insights. We will be bringing you more. This is the marketing week ahead of the 31st annual Marketing Excellence Marketing Performance Awards, which is on Saturday. Thank you. My name is Inshirado.